Welcome to another episode of RK Leadership Podcast, where we share our knowledge and experience on leadership and mindset. My guest today is Pouya Ahmadi, and besides being an awesome person and always smiling, Pouya is a high performer, and he's been in the fitness industry for a long time, and now has transitioned to the real estate world. I brought Pouya on today to talk about his journey into where he is today and talk about the courage he had to make that change and get out of his comfort zone. So without further ado, Pouya, why don't you introduce yourself and talk us through how you got here today?
Thank you so much. That was a great introduction. Think you're gassing me up a little bit, but yeah, I'm excited to be here. To be sharing my story. For me, stories is the biggest thing. I believe we connect through stories. So sharing stories, I know is what inspires others to take action as well, and that's why I love doing things like this.
Awesome, that's great.
Thank you.
So take us back in your fitness, starting in your fitness world, I would say. How did you get started in that? What made you get into the fitness industry? And how did you utilize your leadership skills to get to to get where you're at today?
Great question. So I don't know if you knew, but at GoodLife, I worked my way up to assistant general manager.
That's right.
Right. But I started from literally front desk. Sometimes I say sales because it sounds better, right? And people question it less that went from front desk to assistant general manager in such a short amount of time. But what happened was that I started 2020, January, so 2 months before COVID, and I'm there. I want to move up, so my manager knew that, and that's one of the biggest things is if you want to move up in the corporate world, people have to know. Your managers, your higher ups have to know, and so my managers knew I wanted to get into sales. COVID hits, and I'm like, gosh, like I was so excited, because I was thinking that by that summer I would be in sales. But then COVID hit, everything shut down for a while. Now, when we came back, the whole sales team is gone. So I jump into sales when we come back, and that was in 2021, if I remember correctly. I was, or maybe it was 2020, I don't remember fully, but I did the sales for a few months. Then I went up to assistant general manager, and that's where I learned a ton of lessons. That's where I learned about leadership. That's where I learned a lot about myself, about my style of leading versus others. I learned about like the corporate culture, all of that stuff, which was a lot of fun. I never intended to get to that level, which is what's funny about the whole thing.
That's right.
But I did, and it was a great experience.
So can you tell us about maybe a couple of the challenges you faced as a leader, and what did you do to resolve those and get past it?
For sure, I can tell you a lot of more than a couple. There was a lot. So first thing was, as a leader, it was, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but it was going from being my colleagues as friends or colleagues to being their leader or boss or
That's right.
manager, right? Because I was part of the sales team, and then I got moved up, and the same people were there on my team now. That was, I would probably say, the hardest thing to actually grasp, was that now I'm not only their friends, I'm also their manager.
That's right.
And you have to know how to switch roles, kind of, and know that when you're at work or when you have to hold people accountable, you're their manager. You have to put on that hat. and you still have to be their friend because you still have to treat them the way you used to. You can't just go from being buddies to now, because you've moved up, you're completely changed. And you still have to respect them. You still have to show them the same side of you that they knew before. But now you have to also make sure that they understand that they have to, at the end of the day, um, follow your lead. They have to hold themselves accountable. If you're holding them accountable, they have to know that it's just business,
That's right.
and it's really on you to make sure they understand that. Um, and that was my first challenge. I had one particular um, sales staff. So sales staff in GoodLife, they're called fitness advisors. One fitness advisor where we didn't really, personality-wise, we didn't match too well. So, working together, it's easy because, you just work, you have the small talk, everybody's doing their own thing. But when you start having to manage someone, right, now it's a whole other thing. So now you're talking about, oh, like I have to hold this person accountable, as I said, right? If they're not doing something right, I need to be there to let them know.
That's right.
And they also need to respect me and understand that, again, the relationship has changed a little bit. And, it was on both of us. Um, they were having an issue with understanding that, now they have to look at me a little bit differently.
Yep.
And I would just get frustrated, right? And that was a big challenge. So I think you could probably shed some light onto how to control that frustration. How do you do it? Because like you've obviously been a leader for way longer than I was.
Yeah, in order to, and that's a great point. In order to, be able to control that frustration, and this was going to be my other question for you is, in order to start leading people, you have to be able to lead yourself, right? You have to get to know who you are, what your weaknesses are and what your strengths are, and kind of build on that or, make improvements. And the emotional side is super important because in a leadership role, you are dealing with human beings, and there's a lot of emotions involved in that. And you have to not only be able to control your emotions, but also the emotions of other people. So it does take a lot of practice. It takes real life situations to deal with, but it's all about being able to understand where that flaw is within yourself and working on yourself to be able to control that. And that goes back to the mindset training. And once you strengthen that mindset and you're now strong in every aspect of it, you'll be able to control and, push your feelings aside, and you know that you're in a leadership role and now you got to lead. You're leading people. People are watching you. So if you're pissed off and, you display that anger, people will watch you and they'll lose a lot of respect for you.
Absolutely right. And you know what? That's why I love working out. And this is one thing we talked about when we worked out together is the mindset is so important. Everything comes from the mind. And I love how you mention to be a better leader, you have to be able to lead other people better, you have to be able to lead yourself better.
Absolutely.
I think that just like that's very, it's full circle. It makes a lot of sense.
Awesome. Thank you.
Of course.
So again, going back to that same question, what did you do to in terms of working on your self leadership, and also getting into that role, getting into that new management role? What kind of training was provided for you prior to getting into that role, or was the training all provided to you afterwards, or did you have any pre-training to the role?
So I'm the kind of guy that learns on the job, right? Like no matter how much, well, that's not totally true. So I watch other people, and I try to take as much as possible in and learn from that, and also then I have to go and actually do it to learn.
That's right.
So I would say most of the training was, um, other than, obviously they train you, there's courses, like when you start, you have to go through onboarding. There's obviously always stuff like that. Other than that, it was a lot of just being self-aware, I would say, and watching my surroundings, watching especially other leaders and other managers, and that's where I learned the most from. I had my first manager, Jamie Daniels, one of the best managers I've ever worked with. He was my mentor. Still I talk to him. He's a real estate agent himself now.
Nice.
Yeah, he works up in Barrie, and he was great. He taught me a lot, especially about patience. I told him
Yes.
this literally like a couple of weeks ago. I saw him. I told him that he was one of the most patient men I've ever seen, and he never let his anger be displayed.
That's
He
right.
never let anybody else see it, anger or stress. Because I knew when during COVID, the club was hit financially, right? We're down like more than half of our revenue, and so that obviously puts a lot of stress on the general manager, who's responsible for the finances.
Absolutely.
He gets part of his paycheck
Yeah.
based on that too, right?
And the people.
And the people,
Yeah.
exactly. So he's stressed, but he never let us see it, which is why I respected him a lot. And on the other hand, I had another manager who was, he was great with the politics. He knew how to play the game. Like
That's
that's what I
right.
learned the most from him, and to this day, I thank him for it. But he had some flaws as well, and there's this Persian saying. It says, "Where did you learn your manners?" And the person says, "I learned it from the people without manners."
That's
Yeah.
right. Yes.
So that's I live by that, because my
Amazing.
my parents used to say that to me, and I think it's not you don't only learn and train yourself from watching the people that you want to become. That's very important to have those people in your circle,
That's right.
as we've talked about before.
Yeah.
But you also can learn from uh, watching and observing people that have some negative traits that you don't want to be like. And sometimes it's tough because you, you you take in some of those negative traits. You have to watch yourself, right? And
That's right.
but there's a lot of learning in that too, because when you become someone that you didn't think you could become, then you start to realize what you need to do next time to prevent that from happening.
That's right. And I can actually, attest to that, that this kid is one of the most polite person that I've ever met. Even the first interaction I had with him, he had, very well mannered, very respectful, and you don't
Thank
get
you.
to see a lot of that in young people these days. There's a lot of entitlement, and again, not the manners are not all there, but that's a great point that you brought up in terms of watching other leaders and learning from them. And that's something I share with a lot of the younger people is always be observant of your past managers and
Hmm.
the current managers that you have, and try to learn, have those takeaways. If there's something bad, take that away. If there's something good, take that away. So when you do get into that leadership opportunity in your life, you don't want to replicate the bad leader. You want to, take the bad things that you don't want to do as a leader, and you want to take all the good things and form your own, leadership style out of it. So
Absolutely.
that's very important.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Um, one thing that comes to mind as we're talking about this is, um, for someone like yourself, I feel like as you go through life, whether you're in a leadership position in a corporate world or not, you're becoming more and more of a leader, right? You have kids.
That's right.
You're a leader to your kids. You have maybe you're an older sibling. That's the case for me. I'm an older brother, right? So it's very important for me to teach my brother the right things through actions,
Absolutely.
right? Because words, they don't carry that much weight. Actions carry a lot of weight.
Exactly.
So for you, what has it been like to go through life and to experience different types of leadership? Because I would imagine that leading your kids is a lot different than leading a team in a corporate environment.
Absolutely. So again, I talk about this, and I'll have future videos coming out of it. Leadership is a skill that is transferable, and leadership is not just from a career perspective. Leadership is in your relationships, in parenting, in self leadership, so in your family, so in every aspect there's a piece of leadership. So what I've learned over the years is, the corporate leadership is one thing. There's certain things that are transferable, but there's the attributes and the traits that are very important, like walking the talk, having patience, things like that. You have to do that when you have kids. You can't lose it on your kids, or you can't be different with your kids than you are with your employees, right? So that's very important to kind of to keep that leadership form, whether you're in the office or you're at home. Even a relationship is very important. So one of the most important pieces, or the aspect of leadership, is communication. If I were to say, what is the most important? Communication. And listening is the most important part of communication, right? In a relationship, why do most of the relationships fail, right? In not just relationships, in friendships, it's all about miscommunication, not communicating, with your spouse, with your significant other, and not listening, right? You can listen to kind of hear, but you have to listen to understand the person. And once you do that, and you have that empathy now, there's a lot of aspects of leadership you can pull, and you can, transfer into, like I said, your relationship, your parenthood, your family, your friendship, and people will see that, and you can learn from it. So it is something that's very important in other aspects of your life, not just the office world.
I like that. So the attributes, they go in like all different
Absolutely.
areas of life.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's very good.
Yeah. So you can't be a great communicator at work and then come home and shut it all off.
That's right. Exactly.
And your kids learn from it, and you become a mentor to your kids and other people in the community. So you got to walk the talk as a leader. That is one of the most important things when you're in that corporate world, and when you're in the office, when you're at home. You gotta do as you say, right? You can't just be talking out of the side of your mouth, and you don't take the actions, and you'll get to know that how fast people will lose respect for you.
Yeah.
No matter what your title is in
Right.
the corporation, or no matter who you are in the outside world. So I think that's very important.
You're absolutely right. You mentioned walk the talk, patience, and the communication.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a lot more,
There's,
but those are some of the key areas that I would strongly, and the empathy part, right? With your kid, you have to learn how to, that patience, and be empathetic towards their needs, and when they're only very young, you can't expect them to act like adults, and you can't treat them like adults. So you have to be able to kind of adjust to that.
That's right.
Right?
I had dinner with this gentleman who runs a $100 million business.
Nice.
And one of the things he said to me was, you need to learn how to read the room.
Yes.
Right? You're gonna talk differently to different people.
Yeah.
your boss versus your significant other
Exactly.
versus your siblings, kids, right? Or even your kids as they're growing up, right? As they're becoming adults, you're gonna have different conversations with them, and it's all about knowing how to read the room, how to communicate the right way.
That's right.
As
Yeah.
going back to communication.
So I've worked in the the construction industry and the engineering industry quite a bit, and the way you communicate with engineers in the office is totally different than how you communicate with the field folks.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't learn how to adjust, there can be a lot of misunderstandings, and that's what really starts hurting people and their growth and progression in to become a leader.
That makes sense. I can imagine that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So another thing, Pouya, I wanted to bring up is your transition to the real estate world, and kind of ask you how that's going. But also, one topic I recently been talking, in my videos is change, and there's a lot of fear that people have of change, and people like to stay in that comfort zone, and they there's very reluctant they're very reluctant to make those changes because the fear of failure, the fear of the unknown on the other side, the fear of like making it or not. So how were you able to make that transition?
Well, it definitely wasn't easy. I'll tell you that much. It was a transition that was 2 years in the making.
Nice.
Yeah. So I started studying for the courses in January 2021. And I got my license January 2023. So
Awesome.
I used the whole 2 years because you have 2 years currently to finish all the courses and get the license. Now, that wasn't because I was like procrastinating or anything like that, or I
Yeah.
was afraid. It was because of work and the finances side of it. So there was a lot of preparation that went into it. And one of my old managers used to talk about preparation and how when you're prepared, you're confident. Confidence comes from preparation.
Absolutely, yes.
So I totally agree with that, and I saw it in this case. I had money saved up. I had a lot of skills that I had learned that was going to be transferred into this industry, especially sales, how to talk to people,
Yes.
how to carry myself, stuff like that. And then I had also been planning on what I was going to do when I made the switch. The biggest fear for me was just getting so much time on my hands.
Yeah.
Because you go from working 40 hours a week.
Yep.
In my case, I was working a lot more than that, like 50 hours easily, especially as a manager. And briefly before I started as an agent, I stepped down as management. I went to LA Fitness. That's where we met.
That's right.
Yeah, and I was doing sales again, which actually so many lessons in that too, and like taking a step down and going back to because mentally, psychologically, you think, oh, I'm taking a step down.
Yes.
It doesn't always feel good, but there was a lot of challenges there too, and I learned a lot about myself doing that as well. But the biggest fear was just that to get all this time on my hands,
Yeah.
all this free time, right? And I knew if I didn't use it the right way, I wasn't going to succeed. So it was very important to me to have the first couple of months or first 3 months be a good head start and be a good kickstart. And it was. First thing I did is I took a course called the Immersion Program. Great course. It was taught by Jazz Takar, who is one of the team leaders of the team that I'm in right now,
Nice.
REC Canada. They've been the number 1 and 2 team in all of Royal LePage, Canada, for the past probably a decade. So the reason I took that course was because I wanted to be around these guys, because I knew, again, the people that you surround yourself with, you become.
That's right.
And I knew I wanted to be around these guys, him, his team, and I've been able to learn so much from taking the course and then continuing to work with their team. Then after that, I started just going at it with the leases, doing as many leases as I possibly can.
Nice.
Now I've done 13, and the 13th
Amazing.
deal was like, I don't know if it's the number, but that was a tough one. It took a while. Like from 12 to 13, there was a gap. But the funny thing is that the first 3 months, it was going great, and then things started slowing down a little bit, and I got a little bit tired because I went like all out.
Yes.
So what that taught me is that, my goal was always for the 2 years, from 2021 to 23, was to become an agent. So everything I did was going towards that. And I was saving money because I knew I wanted to become an agent. I needed the money. I was using my time properly because I knew I need to go to work, I need to come study,
That's
I need
right.
to progress. Then the goal was, have the best 3 months, first 3 months ever. And I didn't realize that I didn't have a goal afterwards, So that's right now I'm kind of going through a period where I'm reevaluating things. I'm thinking about how I can take the next steps, and it's going to be to continue what I'm doing for at least I would say a year or 2 years, because I know it takes time.
Absolutely.
But nowadays, this is something I reflect on as well a lot, is nowadays we have this pressure to do really well all the time. Whatever business you start, it has to make 100,000 in the first year. It has to make 1 million in the first year. The 100,000 is nothing now.
The bar is set up pretty high.
The bar is set up very high, and social media is one of the reasons,
Yes.
right? You watch all these people who are successful. For me, I watch a lot of Alex Hormozi,
Nice.
and he, anything he started, he was great at, So I'm like, why am I not like that? Why didn't I make 100,000 in my first month? So it's good to compare yourself to that because it makes you work harder.
Absolutely.
But it's hard mentally, right? Because if you don't do that, then it's hard on you mentally. So I knew getting into this business, I would learn a lot about myself, because I know as an entrepreneur, it's not about just making money. It's about becoming a better person.
Yes.
And it's doing just that. I'm learning a lot about myself. I have to reflect a lot. I have a lot of time to do a lot of reflecting
Nice.
too.
That's awesome.
But it's been an amazing journey. I couldn't ask for anything more, because every single challenge I love, every single late night, every single early morning, every single challenge I go through with a client, difficult conversation, every single offer that gets rejected, I learn something from.
So everything's a lesson.
Everything is a lesson.
That's right.
So it's incredible.
Just going back to your Alex Hermozi's, point, it's about raising your standards, and you always have to raise your standards, to become better in life. So before we head out, before we wrap this up, I'd like to ask you a few quick questions. What are your top 3 lessons that you'd like to share with the audience today?
That's a great question. I would say to keep it the shortest, not to go on any tangents. The same guy I sat down with, I had dinner, who was running a $100 million company. He said 3 lessons that he's learned throughout his whole career. Number 1 is to learn how to read people and learn how to read the room. Number 2 was to know how to communicate, and number 3, a little bit of math. So that was cool to kind of hear that from someone who's running such a big operation. what are 3 things that will help you get to that? You know, read the room, a little bit of communication, and a little bit of math.
Nice. Those are great points. Thank you, Pouya. So for the folks out there that want to get in touch with you, either to learn more about you, or they want to have you as their agent, and I can again vouch for this man. He's somebody that you can definitely trust, and he'll always be transparent and honest with you. Where can they find you, Pouya?
First of all, thank you so much. And you can find me online. Search up my name, Pouya Ahmadi, Pouya. It's 5 letters. Some people think it's Puya. Pouya. Last name Ahmadi. I'm on Instagram. I'll hopefully be on YouTube soon.
Nice.
You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Realtor.ca. Everywhere.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Again, thank you very much for your time today. And see you guys in the next video.